In Costa Rica, things are always changing. So it's always good to have an attorney in your pocket. And today on Is That Legal? Well, my co-host Cristina from BlueZone Legal is going to be talking about some of the changes that's recently happened when we're talking about the tourist visa, digital nomad, some of the different residencies. Hey, this is a detailed video, but boy, it is jam-packed full of some hidden gems that you don't want to miss. So today, welcome back to another Living in Costa Rica podcast, where you can find out everything you need to know about living in Costa Rica.
Cristina Guerrini, hi, CEO of BlueZone Legal, specialized in assisting expats in all your legal needs.
I can't stress enough how awesome it is to be working with Cristina. You know, they have a whole team of people that can help you with everything. I don't care whether it's buying your first automobile, getting your residency, or buying your first piece of property. But in case this is your first time here, hey, look, I am Alan Richard with Off the Grid Homestead. So if you're looking and you're trying to find out information about Costa Rica, can't find the answers, click the link in the description below. You can schedule a phone consultation and you can get your answers right now. But hey, let's get into Is That Legal episode. All right, Cristina, you know, this has been kind of going on for a while. Now tell me, it wasn't too terribly long ago, Costa Rica passed a new law, because used to, if you came into Costa Rica, you only got 90 days. But for whatever reason, Costa Rica passed a brand new law that said, hey, instead of 90 days, you get 180 days as a tourist coming into Costa Rica. How long ago did they pass that?
Okay, it was at the end of September 2023. Clarification, it is not for everyone. There are still people who only get a lower period of time, but most of the countries in the first group, which are the countries that were used to get the 90 days, can now get 180 days. Assume that you belong to the first group, which means you're from the US, from the UK, from the European Union, from Canada, and so you can qualify for the 180 days. And if you don't know if you do, just remember, if you qualified for the 90 days visa, now you qualified for the 180 days.
In your opinion, why do you think Costa Rica legislation changed it from 90 to 180? I mean, it's something I thought they should have done a long time ago, but they are finally doing it because Panama has been doing that for years.
To accommodate to the new world, I will say, to the new post-COVID area, where it is typical for people to spend longer time of the years abroad. So 90 days were not enough anymore to receive tourists to the country. We live in a beautiful country, so people want to stay more than 90 days on a tourist basis. So they extended this is my guess, of course.
A lot of people began to realize that, hey, I can work online, I can work from home. So it does actually give people the opportunity to say, hey, we can go to Costa Rica. However, they only allow us to go for 90 days. Hey, let's just go to Panama. They let us go for 180 days. So Costa Rica's like, hey, we want the tourists here. And so they coming in alignment with the other countries. Hey, maybe that's the case.
So you mentioned, there are people that can work as digital nomad that want to come here. Remember that there is a digital nomad visa specific for those people, and it is a 1-year visa. But I think this is not the topic of today. We're going to focus on the tourist visa for 180 days.
Okay, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I intend on kind of even maybe touching on that just lightly. But it is important to know that, hey, even though they've changed it to 180 days, that's 6 months. And you actually helped me to get a digital nomad visa, because at that particular time, you know, you had to stamp out every 90 days. That was a hassle. And I didn't want to have to stamp out every 90 days. And with the actual digital nomad visa, it was good for 1 year, could reapply for a second year, because it avoided that hassle of having to stamp in and out. However, Costa Rica did change it to where now 180 days, okay, well, you're only having to stamp out twice a year, okay? So then is it really worth having a digital nomad visa? Well, I don't want to get into all that, okay, because we'll talk about that in a series that we are about to do. But here's the problem with the 180-day visa. You can come here for 180 days, but you only can legally drive for 90 days. What's up with
Yes.
that, Christina?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's a typical situation where immigration does not talk with the transport administration, you know. So if in the past the issue, and it is still a current issue, was for the people who are in the process of obtaining a residency, where they are allowed to stay in the country while they are in the process. So they think, okay, good, I can stay until immigration responds to me, which may take months or years, but they cannot drive legally because they still need it and still need to stamp their passport every 90 days. So now we have a position where a tourist is here from 180 days, but he can only drive for 90 days, which is even trickier, if I may, because I will assume that the person who applies for a residency knows a little more about the country and the rules. But if I'm a tourist just coming here and I got 180 days, how am I supposed to know that I can only drive for 90 days?
Good point, right? And now the question here, the wheels of justice turn slow. And so a lot of times, like you said, for whatever reason, they pass this wonderful 180-day law, but it's almost like there's this power struggle with the transportation division and the immigration division where they don't talk to one another. And so immigration says, great, you stay for 180 days. Driving says, yeah, but you still
Mhm.
can't drive but for 90.
Exactly. Or even, it seems, I don't know, they are in a very complicated relationship, immigration and the Minister of Transportation.
I'm a tourist. I come in, I get
Yeah.
180 days. I'm excited. I'm driving, and I really do not know that I can only drive for 90 days. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
what's the likelihood that I'm driving and it's day 95? I don't know any better. What is the likelihood? Because, the transit police or the traffic cops, often have these traffic stops, and they have these traffic stops and they're just checking to make sure that everybody, they've got their inspection stickers, they've paid for their marchamo, which is their, insurance on their vehicles. But they're also, when they see an inspect, they're checking to make sure that you're legally in the country. What are the odds that the traffic cop is actually going to give a tourist a ticket?
Very likely, I will say, because if for a cop that works in the transit police, they just know something for sure. If you're a foreigner, either you have a residency and a foreign driver license, or you can only drive for 90 days. It's a simple rule. It's a simple rule to be implemented. And how do they check? They just check your passport, last entry stamp, and if you don't have the passport, they just, that's another fine. You must have your passport. You must carry it with you when you drive. Many people just bring the copy, but you could get fined and sanctioned just because you don't have the original. So in theory, you should go and drive around with your passport, your driver license, and everything, and a valid entry stamp. If not, it is very likely that you will have issues with the transit police.
Okay. And we know this to be factual because unfortunately I had that experience myself. And so here's the thing that we have to understand is that, hey, I'm driving around and I was actually as legal as can be because I had a digital nomad visa. So I was not required at all to stamp out. So keep in mind, if you're coming here and you do have 180 days, like Christina said, it is most important. Always drive with your passport. You've heard that, yes, technically you can drive with a picture of the passport that has your all your numbers, but you also have to have a picture of that entry stamp. Okay. But hey, it's really up to that traffic police. He could still give you a ticket if he wants to. So just avoid that and make sure that you are driving with your driver's license and you're driving with your passport. Okay. And you better make sure that your driver's license is not expired. Okay. So with that said, he may not know the law. And in this case, he did not know the law. Okay. And I even pleaded with the guy and said, hey, look, I have a digital nomad visa. I don't have to. And to me, this guy was just corrupt. He was hard headed. And when I told him, hey, I'm going to call my attorney, he's like, no, don't call your attorney. I'm taking your plates. So that issue is kind of bad because if he does take your plates, while you may not have to pay the fine, you will get a fine. I got a fine for 60,000 colones. And of course, because Cristina helped me get my digital nomad visa, she helped me get the paperwork that I needed to appeal that. Okay. So I didn't have to pay it, but still it was a pain in the butt because I still had to go and, make an appointment, I couldn't get my plates right away. And it was a lot of,
Mhm.
it's just a pain. So it's just important to know that, hey, right now, that is not lined up. But hey, there is good news. Okay. The good news is it's not going to always be this way. Right, Cristina?
It's not always going to be this way. And I'm going to tell you why in 1 second, because, oh my God, today is all about, for the sake of clarity on my end, please bear with me. Just to clarify, you said you didn't have to pay the fine for the moment. Okay, you appeal against the ticket, and it may take up to 1 year for them to respond. Hopefully, they will, accept your appeal because you were driving legally in the country under the current law rules that were not very familiar for the police that stopped you. But let's say your approval is rejected, then in that moment you will have to pay the fine. So it's not that you appeal and then you're good to go. First of all, you need to have a good reason to appeal, but they will still need time to respond to your appeal and tell you
Okay.
if you have to pay or not.
Okay, so hopefully I won't have to pay because hey, I was legal. If I do have to pay,
Yeah,
well, Costa Rica, shame on you because hey, giving tourists a reason not to come if they're going to get fined and have to
yeah.
pay a fine and they were legal, right? Okay, so, but the good news is that Costa Rica is trying to change things. In other words, they're trying to match up the driving privileges to meet the whole 180-day visa. Is that right?
It is right. In fact, there is a bill of law that has been in the assembly being discussed and reviewed from more than a year, even before the new rules regarding the visa changes. But it has not been approved yet. It is the first draft had received the positive approval of the Tourism Commission. So they said, "Hey, we like this project. Assembly, please approve it." But then after the Commission of Tourism, which was requested to review the bill, gave their positive feedback, the bill changed again. So now, first of all, you need to know that this is just a bill of law. The rules are still the rule that we discussed before. You can only drive as a foreigner up to 90 days. Doesn't matter if you have more days on your visa. And pay attention, if you had less than 90 days, you can only drive for the maximum extent of your visa. So if you only got 40 days, you can only drive for 40 days, not 90.
Pause right there. So
Mhm.
I come in, if I only got 40 days, I can only drive for 40 days. But if I have 180 days, I can only drive for 90 days. But the quick fix is I can go to Panama or I can go to Nicaragua or I can just make a quick flight over to Mexico, enjoy Cancun for a day or two, come back. And once I stamp in, I automatically get another 90 days driving privileges, correct?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
That's a quick fix until this law that's in process gets passed because it's not passed. And as you said, the first draft was January 2023. They liked it, but then they amended it, made a few changes to make it even better in their opinion. That was back in September 2023. And recently in February of this year, 2024, they've even made a couple more changes. Is that right?
It is correct. On Valentine's Day, they decided to change the bill again. And I'm not sure if the new draft is better than the other draft that I had commented on, even on the podcast, on the blog that we have on BlueZone Legal website. So, but let's pause for a second. What does the Bill of Law say as of today. Okay. The new Bill of Law aims to change Article 91 of the rule of the law regarding transportation rules, which is the one that establishes the length of foreign driving privileges and the conditions for them to be recognized in Costa Rica. How do they want to change Article 91? They want to change so that, as you were saying, driving privileges matches, so to say, visa privileges. Okay, so let's start from the 180 days tourist visa. If you get a 180 days tourist visa, you can drive for 180 days.
We're
If you
buffering.
get
Why are we
100
buffering?
days visa, you can drive for 100 days. If you only get 40 days, you can still only drive for 40 days. In other words, the same number of days you get on your passport is the number of days your driving privileges will be held valid in Costa Rica, assuming the police will apply the law, right? Assuming that. Okay, so this is the new rules are pretty clear regarding tourists. Okay, now there are other categories that are also affected by the new bill. You just mentioned digital nomads. Okay, as a reminder, digital nomads have can obtain a 1 year visa in Costa Rica, and the rule regarding digital nomads established that they can also drive for the same extent of the visa. So you can drive for 1 year using your foreign driver license as long as it is valid. Like you cannot drive with a foreign expired driver license. Okay. Now the new project maintains this, and digital nomad can still drive for the entire year. No changes here. How about residence in the country? I was telling you before that once you become a resident, you can obtain a Costa Rican driver license. But until that very moment, when you have obtained your Costa Rican ID and you met other requirements, which I will not mention now or it will overcomplicate things, you can obtain your Costa Rican driver license, which is granted for 3 years in in the first instance, and once you have passed the 3 years pass by, you can renew it and you get 7 years.
All's right there. So in the past, the big problem was is that people would
Hmm.
they would get their residency, and once they got their residency or they applied, they got this golden ticket, piece of paperwork that said, okay, you're in the process of getting your residency, so you no longer have to stamp out every 90 days. However, that's great as long as you don't drive. But if you wanted to drive, you had to stamp out every 90 days. And that was maddening, okay? But now, with this new law that is coming into place, they're now saying instead of stamping out every 90 days, you can do what?
You can just drive for the same privileges that you have. So there is no written rule, or they will not stamp your passport to say that you're in tramite. Therefore, in tramite means in process before immigration. But it is just known that if once you have your plantilla, which is the receipt from immigration with the case file number, the número de trámite, and you can show that and
That
you can
golden
legally
ticket,
drive.
right? That's that golden
Okay.
ticket.
You can, sorry, you can stay in the country without leaving every
Okay.
90 days. Why? Because let's remember that in theory, immigration has 90 days to respond to residency application, but they don't. So forget about that. You will not get a response within 90 days. It may take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, or even 3 years. But they say, hey, we cannot, we are slow. We cannot penalize you just because we're slow. So yes, you can stay in the country, okay, while we decide on your application. But as you were saying, in the past, you still had to leave to drive. Now, what does the new Bill of Law says? That those, well, the first draft said, if you are in tramite, then you can drive, okay, while you are in tramite, like any other tourist, okay. This changes on February 14th with the new draft. So the new draft of the bill says that if you are in tramite, you can already request a Costa Rican driver license. So if in the past, one of the requirements to obtain a Costa Rican driver license was to have a DMEX card, which is the residency card, which is the document, the ID that you get once you become resident. That was one of the requirements. Now, in the latest draft of the bill, it is no longer one of the requirements. You can either show proof of the residency card or demonstrate that you are intramited. Let's pause for a second. What does this all mean? Do you want to try and recap?
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit,
Okay.
because that one word that you're saying simply means that you're in process of getting your residency. And what is that word again?
Intramited.
Okay, so that's a Spanish word that just means if once you're in process. So I
Mhm.
paid you, I've hired you, I've given you my paperwork, and so now we're in process of getting that residency. Well, as soon as I'm in process of getting residency, I can actually make an appointment, go down to the driver's license office, and I can request to get a driver's license long before I'm ever approved. I may never even get approved, but now I can get a Costa Rican driver's license, and I can now legally drive in the country. That's really kind of good for me, because then I don't have to worry about whether or not the traffic cop knows that I'm legal to drive or not. If I've got a Costa Rican license, I'm legal to drive. And I kind of think that's a good thing. And I think the reason they do that is Costa Rica's like, if you're going to be in the country, pay some money to the driver's license bureau so that they can make a little money while you're waiting around.
Of course, yeah, that is probably the purpose of the new bill of law. Honestly, I'm not sure if this is going to be really approved because if you think about that, as you were saying, you can just open a case file. And let me clarify, how can you open a case file and become entramite before immigration authorities? Do you need to have all the requirements to be able to be entramite? No. To open a case file, a residency case file before immigration, you just need to pay some money, $250, a little more now with the exchange rate, your picture, passport certified by an attorney, residency application, done. You're good to go. You don't need to show proof of the investment if you apply under the investor residency. You don't need to show proof of your marriage with a Costa Rican because you want to apply by marriage. To obtain a case number, you just need those minimum requirements. Of course, eventually to get your residency, you will need to provide all the documents, right? But in
Right.
theory, a person may just open a case file to get the driver license without never getting a real residency.
Okay.
Is
So
this a
it's
good or a bad thing? I don't know. But this is the reality of what will happen if this bill passes as it is.
it sounds like Costa Rica is trying to do something that would boost making money as far as the driver's license arena goes. However, it's kind of opening up a loophole, because hey,
Mhm.
if I'm willing to spend $250, maybe a little bit more, well, I could get my residency process going, and I might not ever fill it out, but I'm able to get my driver's license, and then I'm legally driving. So that could be a bad thing as far as Costa Rica goes, because as anything, people, if there's a way to abuse something, then they might abuse it. And if Costa Rica looks into it, they might say, nope, it looked good at first, but that would not be a good thing, which means that would put off approving that whole 90-day and 180-day thing. It would put it off a little bit longer. So that's why, one of the reasons
Mhm.
why the wheels of justice just move so slow. They make a change, things just move slow.
Honestly, I prefer the previous version of the bill where people in the process of getting residency could just drive until they get a response. As of today, to summarize, basically, you open a case file and you can still drive if you have a valid tourist visa. You can still drive for, let's say, 180 days. Once those 180 days expire, you can obtain a Costa Rican driver license based on the new rules. What is that I don't really like? What I try to tell to the clients that come to BlueZone Legal to apply for residency, let's try to please submit the case file once we have all the documents. Immigration has a workload which is hardly manageable by the few people that work there. So we must understand that if immigration is this low, it's not because they don't want to respond. It's just that they are overwhelmed with work and case files.
Okay.
And giving the people, like, so to say, an incentive of just opening a case file to get the driver license may only make this situation worse.
In the past, you could not get a Costa Rican driver's license until you actually were approved for that temporary residency, and then you could get it. So, which is really wise to get it once you're here because it just makes life a little bit easier for you. So, there is a whole lot to residency, and since there is so much to it, hey, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell because Cristina and I on Is That Legal are going to be talking about all of the different categories of residency. Which one's best for you? Which is going to be the most popular? Which is the easiest one? So we're going to be kind of just taking bite sizes as we talk about each one of those things. So, hey, I think you've answered that question. But, hey, also one other real quick thing. We talk about a whole lot of things on Is That Legal? We talk about a lot of things on my channel. But if you are interested in Costa Rica, one of the best things you can do is attend our next relocation retreat, which, by the way, I handpicked Cristina as one of the experts to come to my relocation retreat. She's actually going to be talking this March 3rd, at the next relocation retreat, right?
Yes, I will. I'm happy to come with my team of Costa Rican experts.
And that's really going to be good because this time she's going to be talking about, hey, your assets, right? I mean, when you come to Costa Rica, you have assets, but what happens if you die? Who gets those assets? So we're going to be talking about, hey, is it important to have a will in Costa Rica? Does your will in the United States work here? All that good stuff. And so she'll be talking about that at the relocation retreat. Won't give you all the details on it. Make sure that you can take a look at it. Reserve your seat because I believe it's going to sell out fast. But you've got plenty of time. So reserve your seat. Then you can take your time to decide if you want a room and all that good stuff, which room and all that great stuff. Yeah. So the good news is that Costa Rica is actually working on a new law that is going to bring the driving privileges to 180 days or something to match your visa whenever you come in. However, what kind of time frame are we looking at? How long could that take, Cristina?
A few months, 1 year, 2 years, never. It may never happen. We don't know if they will approve it at all. So
wow. So that's just part of being in Costa Rica. In my opinion, there's way more pros than there are cons about Costa Rica. Those are just things that we have to learn to adapt to when living in Costa Rica. And look, if you're wanting to get a hold of Cristina, check the link below. You can download a free PDF to where you can contact Cristina, contact her team, and get all the things that you need from her. Whether it's buying that first piece of property, getting your residency, anything that you need. Because look, I always say the most important thing when you come to Costa Rica is to have an attorney in your pocket. And I can tell you firsthand, Cristina has helped me a lot. So, Cristina, is there anything else we need to know about as far as the 90-day driving privileges or that 180-day visa? Is there anything else we need to know before we call it a show?
My recommendation is just to subscribe to your channel so that we can keep them posted. We will, of course, if there are any news, we will make another podcast, or they can even reach out to you and, download the PDF to get my contact information, and we're always happy to respond.
Absolutely. Because look, we're always trying to keep you updated on what's happening. You can always check out Cristina's website because they're always putting out blogs and updates about what's happening in the country as well. So, hey, once again, Cristina, it's been fun to do another Is That Legal episode. I can't wait for the next one as we get ready to talk in detail about all of the different residency programs there are for you. And is it even worth it to get residency or not if you get to stamp out every 180 days?
I will not respond now.
You'll just have to subscribe, hit that notification bar, and find out on the next Is That Legal on the Living Costa Rica podcast. All right, we'll see you next time, folks. See you later.
Bye. See ya.